Have you ever watched The Dark Crystal? I remember when I was a kid, this film used to terrify me. I remember whenever my dad put it on, I just could not watch it when I was little. I think I was about 6 years old, and I remember him putting the movie on and me getting up and leaving the room and going to my own bedroom. I was just like so terrified of this movie. To me, it was just like not a regular film. It was like so strange and like the characters scared me and I didn't really understand it. But now I think it's my favorite film. For whatever reason, over my life, like I've unintentionally built an obsession with anything made by Jim Henson. A lot of the things he created, I grew attached to. Like it's only kind of in the last couple of years that I realized they're all made by the same person. But all of it just felt so unique and just, I don't know why, I just got attached. And like the things he made, they're the kind of worlds that you can just feel like you can just get lost in. And The Dark Crystal had that same effect for me. And I think I love it now. But when I was younger, it did really, really scare me. I think what stuck with me wasn't just the fear, but it was how different it was for me. I feel like I didn't understand it. The way the characters looked, I hadn't seen anything like that before, and the way the world worked. This movie was just different. And even though I found it quite unsettling at the time, I think part of me was still drawn to it, especially the Skeksis. I think I'd never seen anything like them before. And I think to really understand why this film feels different, you have to look at who made it. Jim Henson, I've said, he ended up making so many things that I ended up loving without even realizing they had any kind of connection. The first was The Muppet Show. There's like a really big misconception that The Muppet Show was made as a kids show. It was made for kids. But actually that's not true at all. It was made for adults. And Sesame Street was made for kids. But I never loved Sesame Street. I still like it, but I never loved it as much as I loved the Muppets. That was just watching the Muppets. I remember I had the box set of season 1, and I watched it over and over and over again. And then I remember my dad brought home one day the box set of season 2, and I was so happy about it. And it was like a core part of my childhood. And then there was I did still watch Sesame Street, it's still good. But then there was The Labyrinth, and that was like a childhood staple movie for me. That was like the type of movie you put on like when you're bored and like you don't know what else to watch, or like you're feeling a bit sad or something, you go and watch The Labyrinth. Also, as a child, I loved Alice in Wonderland. And I think just the way the worlds are, where they're these like fantasy worlds where like you can get lost in them and they're so different from our world, and like you almost don't really understand the way it works and it doesn't really make sense, but like you can imagine yourself there and like getting lost in it. I think that for me is like why The Labyrinth was like such a staple in my childhood. I just imagined myself being there. I don't know, I remember when I was about 5 or 6 years old, I literally forced my family to call me Alice because I was so obsessed with Alice in Wonderland. But yeah, I think just the imaginary world is something I've always been drawn to. I think this is where my perspective on The Dark Crystal has changed, because when I was little I was scared of it, so I didn't even watch it. And then eventually, I don't know how old I was, but I actually watched it. And then I realized it wasn't as scary as I thought it was. I'd gotten over that fear of it. The world feels so like carefully built. Like the environments and like the creatures and like everything kind of fits together. And there are some movies where you watch it and you can kind of like, you can see that it's a set, you can see that it's just a movie. I mean, the acting can be good, but like if you can see the background is just like literally a photo and you've like not got many props and stuff, and the movie's written not thinking too much about the environment. But this is just completely different. There is so much to the world that isn't explained, and it feels so carefully thought out. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings, where it's just like this whole like universe, and like they don't feel like puppets, right? They don't feel like, when you're watching, they don't feel like characters. They feel like they're real. But that is another thing also. I think I like that I can appreciate that they are physical puppets, ignoring like taking a step back. They're not animated, right? They're all physical puppets, and the craftsmanship behind this film is incredible. There's so much lore as well. And like if you're a fellow autistic person, you probably understand how important lore can be. Um there's just something about it you just get drawn to. And I don't know, that's something I've noticed. All autistic people I know get really deep into the like lore of like maybe films or shows or things that they love. This is a movie where that happens. There's so much there, and there's so much like implied history that the movie doesn't even really touch. It kind of just exists, and I think that's what makes it feel so real. There's like so many questions you have about it. One of the other things I love about this film is the relationship between the Skeksis and the Mystics. They're kind of presented as just polar opposites to each other. You think they're like crazy enemies or something, you know. The Skeksis are these like loud, really greedy creatures. I can't really even describe them. They look like you know, baby pigeons when they're like not chicks anymore. I don't know if that's the right word. Like they're not babies anymore, but they're like kind of growing their adult feathers, but then like they're losing their baby feathers, so they have like bald patches. And I think that's the closest thing in real life that I've seen to Skeksis. Personality wise, they're very selfish. They kind of dominate and act above all other creatures. And they even try and like dominate each other. They try and like outdo and like kind of rule over each other. They completely are willing to backstab each other. And then there are the mystics, which are like these really calm, like peaceful creatures. I don't know, I can't really physically compare them to anything, but they're just like really nice and friendly. Well, I guess they're kind of like sloths, where they're like slow and they like take their time. The Skeksis and the Mystics kind of mirror each other, but in like opposite ways. Like when one of like the Mystics die, like a Skeksis also dies, and like when one like Mystic gets hurt, the other one also gets hurt. And at first, it's kind of really subtle. You don't quite like understand the connection between them, but slowly over the movie, you kind of piece it together. Eventually, it's revealed what's actually going on. The Skeksis and the Mystics weren't always separate creatures. So basically, as background, the story takes place on a planet called Thra. And on Thra, everything centers around this crystal, which like keeps the world in balance. And at some point the crystal is damaged, and that's what causes everything to go wrong, and like it literally cracked and there's like a shard missing. That's kind of what the movie's about, like trying to find this missing piece to the crystal. There's also these beings called like, I don't know how to pronounce them, but Urskeks. I should probably double check that way. I think it's called Urskeks, but I don't really know. But anyway, there's these like, I'm just going to call them tree aliens because that's what they look like. They come to Thra and they meet Aughra, who is like one of my favorite characters. She's such a diva, but anyway, they basically tell her about like the universe and like all the planets and all of that, and like she's like fascinated by it. So like she goes into this kind of like coma, like I don't know, like this space coma where she's like physically asleep but like mentally like exploring like everything and like the universe, and I don't really know. But when she's gone, the tree aliens are like, yeah, we'll take care of everything, don't worry, you can go on your like trip. It sounds like she just took a load of mushrooms and like that's where she went. But they said don't worry about Thra because she's like Mother Aughra, she's meant to be like looking after this place. But you know, they assure her that they'll look after it. So then she's out of it, and then they, instead of looking after Thra, they just like start messing with the crystal. And like I don't really know what they did, but like experiments or something, and they literally just break it. And when the crystal breaks, they break. So instead of being one like tree alien being, splits them into two separate beings. So one side is like the Skeksis, one is the Mystics, and you know the Skeksis is like the evil side of them, and the Mystics are like the nice, good side of them. And that's where all this like imbalance comes from in Thra, like the crystal being broken, and then the unbalance of like the Skeksis literally just take over. So like you have these like real evil, like powerful fellas just ruling over like this peaceful planet. So all of this isn't actually fully explained in the original film. There are like other things that go into more detail. There's like some books and like graphic novels and like other things. But there's also the series The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. And it was so good. I loved it. I really loved it. But it's heartbreaking because it got cancelled after like one season and they like left it on a cliffhanger. They set it up so like the story could continue and it just didn't. So I'm still hoping that one day someone picks it up and like finishes the story. But yeah, I think I don't know, I think that makes me love it even more though, the fact that there's so much there and the movie doesn't explain it all. So like you can just keep going and you have so many questions. And I don't know, it's so much more than just the film. It's like its whole universe. I don't know. There's so many unanswered questions, but then that kind of makes you kind of think and imagine more being there. I don't know. And I think, I think that's why this film stuck with me for so long because it's something I was completely terrified of and I wasn't willing to give it a chance. And then when I did, it like became like one of my favorite things. And I just like that's happened to me a couple of times though in my life. There's something like that I was scared of as a child and then I grew up and ended up like being obsessed with. One of the biggest examples for me is the Cybermen. Um I was terrified as a child of Cybermen. I hated them. But as I grew up, I ended up like loving them. Especially the earlier designs. I'm more familiar with like classic Doctor Who. The new stuff is I still like it, but the classic stuff is like my favorite part. And Cybermen, especially the earlier designs, I really love that part, especially Mondasian Cybermen, because like I think I've explained a little bit in like other videos, but like literally, like I guess the newer designs of Cybermen look so robotic that you forget there's like humans and like people behind it. So like to have still like kind of organic looking things. Anyway, that's a separate topic. I think I'll probably make a video about it at some point and like go over the designs and like kind of the timeline, something like that. There's something that's quite interesting because the thing itself didn't change. The Dark Crystal movie didn't change, right? It's just my feelings about it changed. So like I felt like it was scary. But then like because I was kind of familiar about it, I think that's an autistic thing, I think I try and like hold on, like as an autistic person, it's like easy to struggle with change. So like I kind of hold on to things that feel familiar. So like if something gave me negative feelings as a child, the fact that I had an emotional connection to it at all makes it stick with me. So I think the Dark Crystal had that effect on me. So like I don't know. I could go into more detail, but I'll leave it there. So if you've got any like recommendations for like other like Dark Crystal media, then please tell me because I want to look at it all. Is there any like films or like media or something that scared you as a child, but now you have like an obsession